Kenpo karate. Kariangofo in a Soto uke or inner arm swing block. Kariangofo is in a fight with the occult. He's blocking with a karate block, Shotokan. The use of tactical tricks by the occult while they are tracking their victims. This is a very interesting topic because it talks about these occult operatives, ritual killers, who happen to be very organized. They move in cars, they move on motorbikes, they move on foot, and sometimes in public vehicles. So it's very difficult to know exactly who they are. And unlike people in the police force, they also pretend to be working undercover, or they claim so. Now I'm going to tell you what they have, what they use, how they do it. From my experience as a victim, somebody who's been followed over the years, I want you to note the following. They use hacking phones and hacking computers. That's one. You've seen problems that I have been having, sometimes having problems putting thumbnails, sometimes a video being cut halfway, sometimes uploading on YouTube being stopped, sometimes some things being fished. That is the work of those instruments, the equipment, the gadgets I've told you about. They are able to use voice hacking on your phone and manipulate the camera so that it can take things within the house. They hack your television set, your radio, and any electronic equipment. Sometimes they utilize your TV aerial to get access to whatever is inside the house. They connect, hack any CCTV cameras surrounding your area, within your compound, and are able to see you, hear you on a minute-to-minute basis or hour-to-hour basis, and even when interested, they are able to take your videos, take your voice recording. They tap phones, calls between you and any other people, and mostly when they are tracking you, they track even all your family members. They attach their gadgets with hacking equipment so that on 24 hours you are under their surveillance. It's very difficult to lose them unless police officers get to assist you. Sometimes it's difficult because they hack, and sometimes a few of the rogue security people collaborate with them. That is where problems come, because there are times they will harass you, and they will harass you passing in a real vehicle or in real security uniform. So it's always difficult to know where they get these things, but they are able to access that. They are able to move as undercover, in quotes, to move to banks, to move to hospitals, to even acquire the use of ambulances, which have been used for crime in many cases, and sometimes are able to access uniforms. Let's say in hospital, you arrive there, how they work very quickly under there, and you find they have got security, hospital security uniforms. Some pose even as nurses and doctors. It has happened in many hospitals. There are things I've experienced personally. And some, when they are tracing you and you are in a hospital or you have gone to see somebody in a hospital, they are able to rush, convince them that they are undercover officers, and put on patient clothes. So you'll be there, and a hacker, a criminal, somebody who chases you is in some other bed where they are as a patient. I've experienced this when one time my my brother's son was very unwell. The mother could not be able to stay there, and I went there. That time I was being tracked. And within that time, there were 2 patients. How they managed to convince, and things like that happening. So I know they can be able to access those places. They are able to access all places you go to. There was a time when we were going to a hotel and some of the people who were following us, I don't know how they convinced them, they were able to access the uniform and were serving in the hotel. So that is how deep it goes. That is how deep it goes. And they do not only hack your CCTV cameras. Those who are versed with psychic and witchcraft hack your mind. And that is the most dangerous thing, because sometimes there are things that we call verbatim. You find voices communicating with you. They are prodding your mind. And sometimes they are able to see ahead. The more they involve you in a conversation, it may be an awkward conversation, a stupid conversation. They are reading your mind the brain waves. And they are able to gather more than what you are thinking at that time. And with this, they can be able to plan prior to you making any move. That's why sometimes you wake up and you find certain writings have been configured as warning signs on vehicles. People putting t-shirts that when you read, you realize they are communicating to you. People doing things that appear to be threatening because they were able to gather in advance what you are thinking as you are joking, or as they were prodding your mind. They were getting other things that you didn't realize were being got. That's why sometimes, for those who listen to such a things, we can have very stupid arguments and we call one another very stupid things. But that is not the aim. The aim is to get further into your mind. Get what is hidden there and what you may not notice in your conversation, in your arguments. And that is what they use for a program. That is happening in Kenya. I know it's happening around the world. It started there, but even here, it is happening. They tape your communication. So anything that you communicate, any message that arrives on your phone, anything, social media, be it YouTube, Facebook, WhatsApp, they have them all there. So everything you have on your phone is with them. Everything you communicate is with them. And then with voice hack, everything you speak in your house, they are able to hear. And if you are careless or you have CCTV camera, they can be able to use that to monitor your movements within the house. It happens. It appears those people are very sophisticated, and I don't know how they manage to get the equipment. I've heard of private detectives and other detectives. I don't know. Could they fall within that category? I don't know how those things happen to get into their hands. because there are also private companies that are able to escort things and use such equipment. So it becomes very difficult, but they have that influence. I wrote sometime when I was going for some offices here, revenue and such a places, and you get answers and things that are not working as they're supposed to be, even some created up, trumped up things, and you realize the person giving you may not even be a worker in that place. Somebody who has come as an undercover, so is working as a worker in that institution, but in actual sense may not even be a worker. You get answers that are not interconnected, or if they are denying you certain services, everything you go, you are told they are not there. There was a time I went to 3 banks and I was told loans for people handling, for children with disabilities are not handled by the banks, but it's there written, they're handled by the banks. But that was purposely to block me from trying to get something for my son. I got to know that. And the people who were telling me that, some of them may not even be workers of that place. It's people who have read your mind, they have seen your phone, they have rushed ahead, trumped up a story, and now they are there as good security people tracking a criminal who is the victim. So it's a very dicey situation. They are able to get access to ambulances. I told you that. And some ambulances have been used to commit crimes. There was a time when this was public knowledge. In Mogotio, some people were admitted and then some ambulances came and they were found with their hands cut, and genuine ambulances. Genuine. And these people can be able to influence sometimes the local political situation, and sometimes they can even be able to withstand the use of real legal security by lying or by their connections. So it looks like it's a tough network, not only here, because when you see in America, there are things like Men in Black and things like that, interesting things that happen, and in other countries. So I gather these people who operate these occultic rings have influences that they connect and interconnect, and sometimes leave even the security forces of a country confused. They leave the police confused because they are not really sure whether they are undercover agents, whether they are police, or whether they are civilian. But they are able to pull shots in places you cannot imagine. They have crews with motorbikes. They have crews on foot. And there are those who travel with you in public vehicles, and others use public vehicles, taxis, whatever, public vehicles, to do their job. So it's very, very difficult to pinpoint unless you have been traced for a long time, so you are able to pick faces. Because if they have been on you for a long time, you can be able to pick faces. You can be able to do things like that. You can be able to anticipate their movement, so you know you are being tracked. But for people who are still new, sometimes you are tracked and you are even talking with them, you may never even know. It is that bad. And in places where there are slums, sometimes when they have to do their ritual killing, it is done as a public thing. So they will have rogues, thugs who will come with motorbikes and accost somebody like a thief or something like that. And that's when they beat somebody, they burn him up, and some of them pose as witnesses. So they will report the incident. It happened and people came and they were rowdy and nobody could help and it happened. And that may be one of the gang members reporting. So it is that complex. It is a tough fight the governments of the world have on their hands, because it is intertwined within the system, like the tentacles of an octopus. And the problem is they don't have specific identification cards that will know these ones are this. You don't know whether they are genuine or not genuine. And they are bold enough to approach institutions, to approach places, and even convinced to be given uniforms, or I don't know, borrow uniforms, to act in different capacities wherever you go, and to dissuade people assisting a victim. So a victim always gets roadblock whenever they go. If it's hospital, you are going, you are sick, you try to explain yourself, you wanted to say something different from what they say, then they give you a story. That's a guy we've heard from such a place. They will pose as a doctor. And you find now whenever you make statements, you're seen as somebody who is not mentally right. And that is how those things have been going on. They appear to be having a lot of liquid cash, a lot of finances. But since we said from the time of the caverns underground, these things have taken many years. They have plenty of property and a lot of money and a lot of well-connected individuals in different places supporting them. So they are able to operate almost like a government security force. Almost. They have equipment almost. How they hide it. But it happens. And that is what has been happening. So I think around the world, many people never get a chance of saying because they are overwhelmed. I was not able to make any recordings about the incident when it was intense because I was watched in Nakuru and stopped. If I reach 50, it was instructions. If you reaches 50 meters away from the police station, shoot. And there are people following you with motorbikes, so you just pass. You meet a policeman, you say hi and you go. You can't say anything because there are people who are tracking you, moving on foot. And then there are normal public vehicles, they put on sirens when you pass there. So you find everything is jumbled up on the victim. And it's with this knowledge that such a risk can be able to be stopped. Such a situations can be able to be stopped because you have got victims amongst you who will tell you whatever is happening to them, and the first thing you will say is they are insane. Because whatever they tell you, if somebody tells you is being followed by ambulances, every ambulance that passes, you will say now, this one is going insane. If he tells you there are people who pass with public vehicles and threaten him or follow him, you will say they are insane. But they are capable of keeping a minute to minute tracking 24 hours a day. Not just minute to minute for some time, 24 hours a day on their victims. Tracking every call, tracking every movement, and sometimes anticipating your movements before you move out. So it's an interesting thing. Many people are being followed. These things have worked underground. Some people are even abducted that way because if they want to abduct somebody, they already know the program. They know where one is moving and they will know where to accost you. And sometimes some people have been invited in places and they make sure before you reach that place, you are clobbered. Thugs attack you. I've heard of incidences like that. Others are invited. Somebody, a friend calls you to talk to you. He did not invite you for a bad cause. But because these people are constantly listening, they know you are you are visiting so and so. And when this person escorts you and goes back, they are able to do whatever they want to do. So this is a very complex thing. And those who have experienced such a things and can be able to talk, it's always good to talk out so that we can share information and you can be able to know that these things, the way they happen, it's very difficult for somebody who has not studied them to get to know, or when they get to know, they are so desperate and so scared that they can't talk, and that is the way they are supposed to be. Be so scared so that even when you disappear or anything happens to you, people will say you are paranoia, you are schizophrenic. That is the situation. That is what is happening around the world. That's what's happening around Kenya. That's what's happening in towns. They have got certain warnings that they put. You can read. But sometimes they put them so common that now people tell you, we've seen vehicles with those signs. So you mean any vehicle without? You mean all these people? That is how those things are. Their personnel is big. And they can be able to do things like what happened yesterday. Can be able to cause a mini blackout in an area. Sometimes back it used to be they could be able even to black out the water in an area. And things like that. Interfering with things that you don't anticipate, expect. And they pause. If they want to do power, I think they have got their own overalls. Written properly. Kenya Power and like KPL. And they'll do it and you will think it is a KPL person and that person was not. So it's difficult to know an impersonator and a really. Sometimes the water thing also happens the same. And sometimes even some people who disappear, it may be some people who impersonate the police. And they'll be able to do it because they have that confidence. And they have that knowledge and the tracking of the people concerned. So I thought we could share this because there are some things that happen around the world that people don't know. We've read of men in black and whatever in America. We've read of such a things in Britain. In Kenya, maybe some people, I don't know if I may be the only one, or some people who have experienced this have been bold enough to talk about them. They are realities. So you see somebody telling you is being tracked, all these things are happening, don't take it for granted. In most cases, they are realities. But they are being suppressed, they are being put in such a scare that if they open their mouth, that will be their last time. If they open their mouth, their relations, their brothers, their daughters, their sons, their wives will be attacked. So don't say anything. We shall go for your mother, we shall go for your grandmother. Don't say anything. So to those who keep quiet, many things happen. If you are able to talk, at least you are able to share. Those are things that have been happening. They were happening, are still happening. And sometimes it's difficult for the security forces to be able to tell what is happening. But they have to be aware those things are happening, and to many people. There was a time I thought I was only experiencing, and after talking to somebody, he told me had also a brother who underwent such a things. That's when I was being called, I knew they were people from a certain cult. That's what I thought. But later this person told me these are ritual killers. And they have been operating for a long time, and they operate for a long time. And you know, when I talk of ritual, you can follow the example I used yesterday. So for everybody, wake up. Be your brother's keeper. Watch when you see somebody complaining a lot or behaving in ways that you may think are abnormal. Try to find out, is it abnormality, or is he being overwhelmed by powers that may be moving around you and you cannot be able to see? That is my take for now. This world is not the way we see it. Wake up. Wake up. That is the call from Kariangofo or the Carrier Corps.